All right, guys. Welcome in. Haven't done a show from here in some time. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Got my mic set up a little bit different. Trying not to be too loud here as I am at the apartment complex, but I'm hoping I'll get a little bit of an excuse here given the circumstances going on by my neighbors for doing a show here right now. So I just watched Ohio State with that touchdown return. Was that an interception? Looks like they're going to go on and win the national championship because I don't think Notre Dame is going to beat them. But we just got some news a little bit earlier, and I want to come on and talk about it with you guys in light of the wildfires going on in Southern California. The Clippers Hornets game tomorrow will be postponed. Murray was on it first. And you know what? I'm going to shoot over a link to Law in case he wants to come on and join me here. As the Clippers Charlotte Hornets game is postponed due to the wildfires. Appreciate people coming into the chat. I'll read the statement from the NBA here in just a second. I think Tomer Zarli posted that. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Trying not to talk too loud as I am back at the apartment. Maybe we'll have a different guest and my cat will make an appearance here in a little bit. But wanted to make sure I came on, and I was planning on I had just done a ton of research on the Charlotte Hornets this season and was getting ready to do a preview because it sounded like the game was still on, but with these new evacuations going on in the Palisades now, additional evacuations happening, stuff that had just come up over the last half hour or so, I think that solidified the decision to not go through with the ball game tomorrow. As if you follow any of these accounts on Twitter, like LA City Emergency Alerts, they said people in the west of the 405 freeway to Mulholland to Roscoe Mare to Sunset should prepare to evacuate due to a rapidly moving wildfire. I'm just reading this at Notify LA. So sounds like things are pretty far from contained still, unfortunately. Mio, J-Dog, good to see you guys in here. Carlos is in here, not Carlo. It is a good thing they let you know tonight. Driving 4 hours away from that ball game. You are a dedicated member of Clipper Nation. Yeah. Once we heard about the LA Rams game being moved, we knew this was a possibility. And it's been made official by the NBA, who released this statement. The National Basketball Association games scheduled for tomorrow between the San Antonio Spurs and Los Angeles Lakers at Crypto.com Arena and between the Charlotte Hornets and LA Clippers at Intuit Dome have been postponed due to the ongoing wildfires in the Los Angeles area. The dates for the rescheduled games will be announced at a later time. The NBA and the Clippers and Lakers organizations have been in communication with local officials in Los Angeles and Inglewood about the ongoing situation in the Los Angeles area, and the game postponements ensure no resources will be diverted from the wildfire response efforts. The NBA and the National Basketball Players Association are donating $1 million for immediate relief to the American Red Cross, World Central Kitchen, and other organizations to support those affected by this disaster, and are working with the Lakers and Clippers on ways to support longer-term assistance and rebuilding efforts. To learn more, you can visit cares.nba.com/wildfire relief efforts. Notice I didn't say visit URL. Yeah, the leadership has been rough. So that is the update, guys. Now, obviously, the Clippers on Monday are supposed to take on the Miami Heat. We don't know if that game will be played yet. I am doing okay so far. Appreciate people checking in with me. We'll see what happens with the game on Monday for the Clippers at Intuit Dome against Miami. I'm guessing that game will be played. The Lakers also have a game against San Antonio on Monday. So was that a back-to-back for them? A 2-game miniseries? But the game against Charlotte for the Clippers has been postponed. It's, of course, the right move. I mean, we have new parts in the Palisades that are currently being evacuated just in the last half hour here. So it makes sense that, as it was a fluid situation, to see, of course, the unpredictability with the wildfire and which way things were moving. And obviously, there wasn't enough of containment going on at this point to have games tomorrow. So, don't know what just dropped there. A little bit concerning. Okay. That was just my phone. Who cares? Got an OtterBox case on it or whatever. It will be all right. Best wishes to everybody. Timothy said, I'm confused by this. How are they sure about Monday's game? I hope you're well, Adam. Did anyone say they were sure? Let's see. Clippers PR just put out this statement. Clippers Hornets January 11th game postponed. Events to resume at Intuit Dome on January 13th, including UFC 311 on January 18th. So they're saying they'll be back on for the game Monday night. The NBA announced the LA Clippers game against the Charlotte Hornets at Intuit Dome has been postponed due to the ongoing wildfires in Los Angeles and out of respect for the public service resources needed during this time. The health and safety of our community and our fans remains our highest priority. Next week's events will continue as scheduled at Intuit Dome, with the Clippers hosting the Miami Heat on Monday, January 13th, and the Brooklyn Nets on Wednesday, January 15th. We will welcome UFC 311 on Saturday, January 18th. Tickets for the game against the Hornets will be honored on the rescheduled date. So Monday is official. The Clippers will be at Intuit Dome taking on the Miami Heat. So let's pray the containment is something they're able to make progress with by Monday's game. But it is on. Thomas is talking about something completely different. Batum has regressed, might be traded. He will not. And he really hasn't regressed much. He's 36 years of age, and it's been really good in his minutes. He is top 3 in plus minus on the Clippers team so far. So no. Punk's Gone Wrong said, cheers, I hope you're doing well. Same to you and yours. Timothy said the fire is not even contained. Shaking my head. Well, there's an ongoing effort there, obviously, and yes, over the last half hour, there have been some new evacuations with respect to the Palisades. It is incredibly heartbreaking. I listened to JJ Redick earlier today, regardless of what you think of him, and I've been a fan of him for some time. Your heart has to break for those who lost their homes. And just hearing him talk about it, and that was today at Lakers practice. I know he wanted to play tomorrow. That's not happening. The Lakers game has also been postponed at Crypto. So It is official that the Clippers will be playing Monday at Intuit Dome against the Miami Heat. This is what we know right now. And like I said, I'm trying to move in a different direction because you don't come to me for even information like this. But it's easy to read a press release. And I know people in Clipper Nation were wondering about the situation and what was happening for tomorrow. Yes, K-Dub says prayers out to Dime Dropper. I've been in light communication with Darian Vaziri. Just let him know if he needs anything. I'm there, but he's got a ton of support and is with family, so that's good. But it's heartbreaking. It is unfathomable what has happened. Timothy said, do you think games could be played somewhere else, like in San Diego, if they can't contain? I don't want to speculate. I'm not going to do that, Timothy. I'm just going to read the report here and tell you that Monday, Clippers are taking on the Miami Heat at Intuit Dome. That is the plan. That's what's happening. So, and they released the rest of the schedule. The Clippers game on Wednesday, UFC event coming up later next week. But I've been trying, as I mentioned there, to move forward or at least distract with some Clippers-related content. When you guys want information about the fires, you go somewhere else, but this is obviously Clippers-related, so I thought it would be appropriate to get to it here. This is my cat, Shadow, that I got for Christmas. She is 5 months old and has the complexion with the color to look like Shadow, a shadow, and now follows me around like my shadow. Hopefully that brought a little bit of levity to some otherwise very serious topics here, of course. But I was prepared earlier to do a preview of the game for tomorrow. Thought it was going to happen, and then I'm guessing after more mandatory evacuations, that was a no-go. It is just incredibly heartbreaking. Everything happening as I'm looking at a report from the Tim Conway show on KFI AM 640, where they're posting some video from ABC 7. Just the horror and devastation going on. Just hard to believe. I thought I would give you something here to try to distract and make this into more of a basketball podcast, because no one's coming here to get reports on the fires. Of course, it's unavoidable to some degree, but I thought we could talk about, because I saw this a little bit earlier from Law Murray. I know some of you were asking immediately after the game the other night, when's Kawhi going to be back? Immediately when you heard that Kawhi Leonard was going to be with his family, I thought some of that was, maybe your priorities were in the wrong place. But we do have an update regarding Kawhi, and he would have been available to play tomorrow had that game been a go against the Charlotte Hornets. That came from Law Murray. And he had a tweet that said they expected the game to remain on the schedule. That came out, 20 minutes before he then updated that and said the game would be postponed. Law Murray put that out there before Shams Charania said it. Law had the jump on the story, But he also had this from about 2 hours ago saying the LA Clippers report that Kawhi Leonard is no longer on personal leave and would be available for Saturday night versus the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, that game is not happening now. So I thought maybe something we could talk about would be Kawhi Leonard and just how he has looked so far as we distract, deflect, and look for a diversion and try to give you something else to think about for a little bit here. Even though everything's intertwined, it's hard to talk Clippers basketball and not the Fires since they're connected. There's no game tomorrow night because of the Fires. But I think we can do our best to give you some Clippers basketball content here, as Kawhi Leonard has played 2 games in his return, left the team to head back home to be with his family, as my understanding was he has a place in the Palisades, and there was a report out there by TMZ that it was spared. Thank the Lord. Not everyone, of course, was so lucky. But Kawhi Leonard so far, he's had 12 points in a game against Atlanta, where he was knocking down threes outside of a push shot in the second half. And that's what I found encouraging in that ball game. Just the fact his first game back, they won big over Atlanta. He played a little over 19 minutes, and 3 of his 4 makes were from 3. That tells you his legs appear to be there, and it's in stark contrast to what we saw when he first returned from the ACL, where I want to say over the first month or so, in fact, I could look this up, he was shooting about 15% the first 8 games he played. Now, obviously, he played the first 2 and then felt stiffness in his right knee. First 2 games are coming off the bench against the Lakers and Suns. They're in OKC. He feels stiffness in his right knee, and then he's out for 3 weeks. And then he comes back and then tweaks an ankle, and he's out for a couple of weeks. So it took him a while to get to an 8-game sample size. But early on, regardless, when he returned in the fall of 2022, coming off the ACL, you look at the 3-point shooting numbers. He went 1 of 4 in game 1 against the Lakers, 0 of 2 against Phoenix, 0 of 3 then when he came back from the knee stiffness against Detroit from 3, 1 of 3 the next game against San Antonio, 0 of 3 against Utah. Then he leaves for a couple of weeks after turning the ankle, goes 0 of 3 against the Charlotte Hornets from 3, 2 of 6 against Orlando from 3, 1 of 5 against Washington from 3, 2 of 3 against Boston, where he had a very good game, and that was kind of a turning point, I would say, where he had 25 points. Clippers won a big game at home over the Boston Celtics, and then things started to take off from there. But through the first 8 games before that Boston game, I believe he was shooting 15% from the outside. He's looked better than that from 3 so far. And even though he went 1 of 6 the very next game from 3 against Minnesota back in 2022, that was 2 of 5, 1 of 4, 1 of 2, 1 of 2, 3 of 6, 1 of 5. And then in the month of January, Kawhi shot 45% from 3. So if you look at it from that perspective, and the injury isn't as serious as coming off an ACL this time, there was no structural damage. This was swelling in his knee. I don't expect him to take that long to get up to speed, to get back to hopefully where he was, that version of Kawhi Leonard we saw when he set the all-time efficiency record over a 30-game sample size. And I want to try to find this tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski. This is because I always forget the exact shooting splits he had over the 30 games when he set the efficiency record, but here we go. This was from Woj on February 6th of 2024. Over the past 30 games, where Kawhi has a 25-5 record, he was averaging 26 points per game while on 57, 51, 92 shooting splits. He's the first player to average 25 points on 55, 50, 90 shooting splits over any 30-game span in NBA history. That was incredible. And that was last year. The first year, the 22-23 season, coming off the ACL, again, once he hit January, he was averaging 28 per game while on 54, 45, 92 shooting splits. And then in February, he was at 27 per game on 49, 53, 92 shooting splits. In March, leading up to the playoffs, 25 per game, shooting 54, 44, 86 shooting splits. And then obviously it carried over into the first two games against Phoenix before he tore the ACL, where he was averaging 35 per game and shooting 55% from the field, 60% from three, 88% from the free throw line. Just an incredible, incredible player. And one of my favorites ever because the efficiency while playing defense. There was a conversation going on. Where was it? I think it was on Clippers Reddit earlier, where they were putting some all-time player rankings out, and somebody asked if Kawhi should be in this mix. And it's from NBA Talk Community on Reddit, and they showed a. I'm not sure the exact context of this, but they have a list here where it shows Jordan. I think it's just somebody's all-time, what was this, top 15 player list or something. Or no, this is 5 times top 21 players that they have personally, their list. And they have MJ, LeBron, Kareem, Bill Russell, Bird, Magic, Tim Duncan, Wilt Chamberlain, Shaq, Steph, Hakeem, Kobe, Dr. J, the Big O, Jerry West, Jokic, Moses Malone, Kevin Durant, Giannis, KG, and David Robinson. So they gave you, 21 players here. And somebody asked, does Kawhi belong on this list? What I would say is this. There aren't 21 players better than Kawhi in a 7-game series. His playoff splits, like the last 50 games from him in the playoffs, are something insane. We're talking like 50, 40, 90 stuff and above. His last 50 playoff games. Basically, since he became a number one option around, 2016 with San Antonio. If you go back to then, the last 50 games from Kawhi in the playoffs, otherworldly stuff. Not many are better. So it depends on how you categorize it, but I would say at his best, at his peak, because there's a difference between peak and career and longevity. At his peak, in the highest stakes games, I don't think there are 10 better players than Kawhi Leonard. I don't. At his best, when the stakes are at the highest, I don't think there are 10 better players in NBA history than him. And by the way, I've just been going through some of the regular season runs he has had with the Clippers where he's gone and put up historic numbers with efficiency. But again, you go playoffs last 50 games, I don't know if there are many better players where you can section off 50 playoff games. First of all, not everybody's had that many. And extrapolate that and show better numbers than Kawhi has had over his last 50 playoff games. When it counts, he's just a demon. He was punking KD the first 2 games against Phoenix. And obviously, I'm not counting the 2 games against Dallas where he was playing hurt this past season. That wasn't Kawhi. And part of what's so encouraging is, and I brought this up immediately, but this season, the Atlanta game, going from that to how he looked in the Minnesota game, he looked better against Minnesota. He looked more spry against Minnesota than he did the first game. Unlike the playoff series last year, where he noticeably looked much worse against Dallas in game 3 than he did in the first game in game 2. So I'm hoping we're getting already some really good signs from Kawhi Leonard in having confidence in his body, knowing that his legs are there enough to be 6 of 10 from 3 so far in 2 games. Or excuse me, 5 of 10. He's only shooting 50% from 3 his first 2 games. People will say a small sample size is like, well, he had 30 games last year where he shot 51% from 3. Want to see something wholesome? Shadow kind of freaked out there when I turned the camera. Timothy asked, Adam, I have a question about our offense. Without Kawhi, where do you rank our offense compared to all NBA teams? I rank them where they are ranked. They're currently 23rd in offensive rating. Offensive rating, guys, you can look up the details on how they calculate this, but it's basically how many points you score per 100 possessions. It is a great measurement of how you stack up against other teams because it takes kind of pace of play out of it, because some teams are going to score more points because they have more possessions because they play at a faster pace. This kind of levels the playing field, puts everybody at 100 possessions, and then how many points do you score in 100 possessions? Clippers are at 109.9. Now, I will say this. That is, all lineups on the entire season. What about their offensive rating with James Harden on the court this season? So on the court with James Harden, they're a little bit better at 110.2 than where they are on the season, because on the season accounts for all lineups. But that's still a bottom 10 offense in the league. Now they've had some injuries, but who hasn't? And offensive rating accounts for all of that. That's pretty well put. The cat was like, why are you filming me? Hey, Shadow. Shadow. Because I see my NBA Jam 1-up machine in the background there. So that's been keeping me entertained. I beat all 28 teams or whatever it is in that game on the extra hard level. So Timothy said we were actually 27th offensively in the last 10 games. I'm aware they've been worse as of late. Teams like Raptors, Heat, Bulls, Blazers, Pelicans are better than us. We can agree that we have better roster than them, right? Like, I'm not saying they're definitively better on the offensive end because they've been better the last 10 games. That's why I'm going off the entire season to come up with the Clippers are 23rd over that span. Like, you can go last 5 games and they're 29th. But we've been talking about, if you check out the last podcast, how the Clippers defense has dropped off over the last 6 games. They haven't looked like themselves there. Offensively, during that time, they've been a little bit worse too. So they just haven't been playing good basketball overall. It's a roster issue. It's not an offensive coaching issue. They don't have a ton of firepower. They don't have their best player on offense in Kawhi Leonard. I'm telling you guys, when Kawhi Leonard gets ramped up to speed, they're going to have a top 10 offense. When Kawhi is Kawhi, they will have a top 10 offense again. And if you keep having a top 5 defense during that, that's how you become an elite team. Because there's only a couple teams. Let's see how many teams are top 10 in offensive rating and defensive rating on the season. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are first in offensive rating and 10th in defensive rating. So they qualify. The Boston Celtics second in offensive rating and 7th in defensive rating. They qualify as well. The Knicks have the 3rd best offense on the season, but they're down there defensively. Things have kind of flipped for them. They're 15th defensively, so they don't. The Denver Nuggets, 4th on offense. Everybody giving Russell Westbrook his flowers, but they're 19th defensively. They're much worse defensively. The drop-off has been bigger there than their improvement on the offensive end, where last season the Denver Nuggets were like 6th offensively. Now they're 4th. Okay, they're a little bit better there, but last season defensively, I want to say, yeah, they were 8th, and now they're 19th. So people should probably put that in the equation. So other teams that are top 10 in offense, the Memphis Grizzlies 5th. They're also 5th defensively, extremely balanced. The Dallas Mavericks 6th, but they're 12th defensively. They're good there. They're above average, but they're not top 10 in both. OKC's 7th offensively and the number 1 defense. So there's another one. They join the Cavs, the Boston Celtics, and the Memphis Grizzlies as being another team top 10 in offensive and defensive rating. The Kings have won 6 in a row. People are going to talk about Mike Brown now getting a raw deal. Seems like it worked. I understand the point of Mike Brown. The way they told him was, I think, disrespectful. You let him go through. He'd just spoken to the media like 15 minutes beforehand, and then they fired him after that. And it's not like he said anything controversial then that led to his firing. Just they should have handled it differently. But I get why they did it. Too much talent to be playing that poorly. And obviously, they've been turning things around now. So the Kings, yeah, they're 8th offensively, but defensively, they're 13th. Indiana Pacers, 9th offensively. They are not that on defense. They're 21st. And then the Phoenix Suns, 10th offensively. No. Defensively, they're 22nd. So there's 4 teams total that have that balance of being top 10 in offense and defense. And they're the 4 best teams in the NBA. I definitely think Cleveland, Boston, and OKC are the top 3 teams in the NBA. The Memphis Grizzlies are the other team in that equation. They're 5th on offense, 5th on defense. So I think, offensive and defensive rating is the standard people go off of nowadays. If the Clippers get Kawhi Leonard back to looking like last year's version of Kawhi, where on the season they were a top 5 offense, even without Paul George, with Norman Powell in there, I expect them to be a top 10 offense when Kawhi is right. And there's no reason they can't still be a top 5 defense when Kawhi is right. That's my point why I went down that list. Bay City said hustle against Atlanta was impressive, hands all over the place looking for the ball. It was. Timothy said, but I don't feel like Utah got better roster than us offensively. They're ranked 20th. They have more offensive options, I would say. Markkanen, John Collins, Sexton, Clarkson. They have some weapons. I mean, the Clippers have been, without Kawhi, have been starting a team with DJ and Chris Dunn, who both struggle on the offensive side. The rating is the rating. Timothy said he got 15th offensive rating with Hero, Bam, and unmotivated Butler. So is it roster or offensive system? I mean, Tyler Hero has had a really good year. Like, I think they do have more offensive firepower overall, and maybe some of that is those guys have been together for a long time. James Harden's in his first full season as a Clipper. The system is in its first full season, and he hasn't had Kawhi, and Paul George is in Philly, and the Clippers have had more moving parts than the Miami Heat. K-Dub said we need shooting, athleticism, real backup point guard and center. Yet you offered no real solutions to getting all those things. Who are they trading? How are they doing all that? Every team has flaws, my guy. Every team. By the way, this hefty bag on my chair is not because this is a Dexter Original Sin kill room or anything. It's because, the cat. Or I came home from the gym and I didn't want to dirty up my chair. The Clippers, they're also, I do think part of the reason their offense struggles is because they give so much effort on the defensive end that it takes something out of their legs on the offensive side. And as he said, I just think we need more from Ty Lue on the offensive end and front office need to help him with the backup point guard. Like, I'm fine with a more stable seasoned backup point guard. That's what I think their biggest need is. I don't think it's backup center. I think there's some distance between those two. But Coach Lue, every year, gets voted by his peers the best in-game adjuster. The Clippers just had a top 5 offense with him last season. They've always been good in that area. I'm not worried about Coach Lue. Coach Lue is not a different coach than he was when the Clippers have a great offensive system. This is about the roster, and I think at times, let's look at quarter by quarter, or just look at the fourth quarter offensively for this team. Because when teams are giving their all on the offensive end, I think the Clippers struggle more then. Yeah, they're 25th offensively in fourth quarters. So 23rd on the season, 25th in fourth quarters. And I think the second quarter, I'm guessing, is also going to be a struggle. Maybe that's when their defense falls off. Okay, they're also 25th in second quarters on the season, the Clippers. So if you look at first quarter and third quarter, when James Harden is on the floor more, their offense is going to be a little bit better. They're 18th in first quarters in offensive rating. They are 16th in third quarters in offensive rating. Now, fourth quarters, James comes in 7-minute mark, something like that. But teams in the fourth quarter, they're getting a tired James Harden. They're giving a better effort on defense. And so that's always been my concern. When teams ratchet up the effort on that end, the Clippers struggle more. James Harden struggles more. And I can tell you, and I'll give this stat again because it is alarming, but I think tells you something about being an older player, having as high of a usage rating as he does, not having Kawhi Leonard yet so far this season, the real Kawhi. I've had him for 2 games. But again, minutes restriction, and he's not ready yet. But you look at this Clippers team in fourth quarters and the assist to turnover ratio from James Harden. This is going to blow your mind. Maybe it won't. James Harden has 34 assists in fourth quarters this season and 28 turnovers. It is almost a 1-to-1 ratio. You want a 3-to-1 ratio from your point guard. It's almost 1-to-1 in fourth quarters. Now you look at all quarters, his overall averages, he's getting 8 assists to 5 turnovers. Still not great. 7.9 to 4.7 technically. It's not great. But fourth quarters, man, it is a struggle. I wonder if I get a first quarters with James Harden, where his numbers are at, how much better the assist turnover ratio is at. So he's got 104 assists to 48 turnovers, so a little bit better than a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio in first quarters. Second quarter, it's 50 to 35. So it's been a bad quarter for them. It's not a great quarter for James Harden. I've asked Coach Lue about this, why he struggles, because shooting-wise in second quarters, James Harden shoots 32% from the field and 25% from three. It's his worst shooting quarter. It's not his worst assist to turnover quarter, but it's bad. He explained it that he went out of his way to say that James Harden is not old because he doesn't like hearing that. But he basically said it's because he plays the majority of the first quarter. He gets that first rest in. It's hard to warm up and get the legs going again. That's how he explained it, why his shooting splits are really bad in second quarters. They used to be even worse. They've gone up a little bit. His season averages and his shooting splits have gone up. So third quarters, 86 to 53 assist to turnover ratio, getting closer to 2-1. But we know fourth quarter, he's only got a handful more assists than turnovers. I do think the way they hustle on defense hurts their offense, but they have had to play way above their heads at times. I don't think they should be a top 5 defense without Kawhi Leonard. But they have been. They've been impressive. Jay said, I hope NBA doesn't add this game in March. Already are playing every other day with 3 back-to-backs. Yeah, 17 games in March. Timothy said, yeah, but Ty Lue offensive system was at peak in first season because we were generating the most catch and shoot, a lot of wide open threes from the corner. This season we were last in catch and shoot. Well, they also have more ISO guys. James Harden plays more ISO. Like Paul George could play off ball a lot more. Norm Powell does, but you lean into the strengths of your players. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard were top 2 in PPP, points per shot, or points per possession in isolation buckets last year. It was Kawhi Leonard, then a little bit further down, James Harden, and then guys below that. They were the best at being efficient in isolation situations in the league. So that's what you're going to do. I do not think Ty Lue has gotten any worse as a coach. I'm telling you, I think it's not having Kawhi Leonard and giving so much effort on the defensive end that has hurt their offense. They have 2 guys in their offense. Just look at every player in the offense. Norm is good off ball. He's good at attacking closeouts. He's a good catch and shoot guy. But he can't create for himself. He can't do what Paul George used to do in that way. He can't ISO. He can sparingly here and there. And he doesn't create for others that much. Here and there he can. He's better in that area. But those are far from his strengths. Then Chris Dunn is a negative on the offensive side who has been in a shooting slump from the outside after a hot start to the season. DJ, you could say the same thing about, but he does find cracks in the defense and make some explosive athletic plays where he can slash a little bit, obviously in transition. Ivica Zubac is depending on getting the basketball and could be used better, I think. But they forget about Zoo. And then James Harden is James Harden. Like that's their starting lineup. So you have 2 guys there that are not good offensive players in DJ and Chris Dunn. That's not what they do. And they're missing shots right now. So the defensive rating has been going down partially because the three-point percentage has been going down. And then you have a player who can't really do much for creating for himself or for others in Norm. And then you have Zubac, who's dependent on getting the basketball, and James Harden. Like, it makes sense to me. Timothy says, because we were shooting 39% from catch and shoot, which ranks us 7th in the league, I just think we need to generate more catch and shoots. Dead ass last in field goal attempts is just sad. On catch and shoots, they're last in field goal attempts or overall in field goal attempts? Because they play at a slower pace, so that's why overall field goal attempts would be down. But yeah, their drive, kick, and swing is harder to generate, and those catch and shoots typically are open threes, but it's harder to generate as many open threes because they don't have enough juice on the ball to put the defense at a disadvantage and create those advantages for them. And that's why it's happening. They got to touch the paint, but they have a 35-year-old with a 30% usage rating. Norm, who does what he can, but that's not his strength. DJ and Dunn aren't doing what they, aren't offensive juggernauts by any stretch. They Dunn can, as a little floater and sometimes end of shot clock stuff, he can create a bucket for himself, but it's difficult. And I don't think he's great on ball with being a playmaker. He can bring it up, but I don't think so far this season he has had some head scratching turnovers in the backcourt that stick out to me. So I don't think it's because, they're generating a bunch of catch and shoot shots and guys are just turning them down while they're attempting the fewest amount at 20. It's on catch and shoot threes. It's because they're just not able to generate enough because they're not bending the defense because they don't have enough athletes that can create and put the defense in that spot where they got to make a decision. I think they're doing the best they can. I don't think this is a Coach Lou problem. I think this is a personnel and guys playing and keeping them afloat for so long without Kawhi that their defensive rating, it's been dropping. Excuse me. Well, obviously defensive rating as of late, last 6 games, but the offensive rating overall has been dropping. If you go to different segments of the season, let's see, October, I know that's just a couple of games, but we can start with that. Let's start with the month of October. Why is it not giving me NBA.com? Sometimes, you switch something and then it changes everything else back and reverts back. So offensive rating in October, the Clippers were 19th, and that is 5 games. Offensive rating in November, Clippers were 25th. But defensively, what were they? 5th. There you go. Offensive rating in December. This is a little bit better than 25th. 21st. Okay. But now so far in January, and it's only 4 games, but they're 26th. So, yeah, it's kind of going the wrong direction. Jay said, no, Jay, you didn't hear the news earlier? They're playing Monday. That's already out. Obviously, God willing, but they're planning to play Monday. But yeah, both LA teams do play each other on the 19th. That's at Intuit Dome. First game between the Clippers and the Lakers. I just got to say this, and going back to Kawhi Leonard, I am overall very much encouraged with his movement, enough explosiveness, even though he hasn't, really pushed things, really pressed on the gas yet. But there have been a couple moments. He was bringing the ball up a lot more early on in the game in Minnesota, which I thought was big. He was doing more of that, on ball, bringing it up. And that's why I think Chris Dunn eventually will be out of the starting lineup, because the reason he's in it is for more on-ball juice to help out James Harden against those teams that pressure you. And Coach Lou did say it would be matchup dependent, but I think overall, as the season goes along, Kawhi's going to bring it up. That's going to be the safety valve for James Harden. So therefore, you don't need Chris Dunn in the starting lineup when Kawhi is playing 30, 35 minutes a night. It'll be DJ. because Kawhi can be that other guy that brings the ball up. MKXLNT said, I'm giving it time. This is a transition with Kawhi coming back. A couple of weeks. We'll see where things really stand. Yeah. I think there are a lot of moving parts that are affecting the team at the moment. Coach Luke kind of touched upon that post game after the loss in Denver. Got Kawhi coming back. Other guys maybe hitting a wall that have been asked to do more than they typically are because Kawhi's been out for so long, and it's starting to catch up with them. And then Man's back. So, it's a great thing to get guys back, but it does create its own set of problems. Overall, they're positive problems to have to figure out new lineups and rotations, but they are things you have to consider. But the main thing is Kawhi's knee so far has not been swelling up after games, and he looked better movement-wise and was doing more against Minnesota. Now, he had a putback where he tried a reverse layup on, I think, the third quarter after a miss by Ivica Zubac, and it was right before he went out of the game against Minnesota, where it didn't look like he had much lift, or he didn't realize he didn't have that type of lift yet. But that happens with, guys when they come back not having their legs all the time. Not everyone can be Zion when he comes back and has a reverse 360. I know that he was late for the plane and got suspended for a game, and they won anyways tonight in Philadelphia, by the way, 123 to 115. But most guys, it's a ramp up and a build up process. It's definitely going to be like that for Kawhi. So don't expect him to be jumping out of the gym yet. But the thing I always remind people is when it comes to Kawhi's lift, the reason he can still dunk on guys is because the injuries are to his right leg, and he's a left-legged leaper. He jumps off his left leg. Kawhi can still get up. I think he's going to be all right there. You watched the games last season, the dunk on Boston. When he first came back from the ACL, the dunk he had on Jakob Poeltl against Toronto was huge. It looked reminiscent a little bit of the Derek Favors dunk right before he tore his ACL in that game 4 against Utah. But I don't worry too much about that. And obviously he's so skilled in the layup package and just everything he can do out there. He's never relied on athleticism. Kawhi Leonard is as close as you can get to a flawless player. There's nothing he can't do. The one flaw people have picked at, or the one presumed flaw, I don't even think is a flaw. He's not an elite playmaker, but he's not a bad playmaker. He makes the easy pass. He makes the simple pass. He doesn't make many fancy passes, but he makes the right pass. He doesn't go out there and, set the table like LeBron, but, LeBron can't shoot threes like Kawhi, or doesn't have the mid-range game like Kawhi. Kawhi is a complete, flawless player. Now, LeBron is still, he's the better player overall. His athleticism allows him to do things that nobody else could do at that size in the history of the game. And that dunk he just had against Derek Lively was insane at 40. And I'm just saying, when you put the entire well-rounded game together for Kawhi, the defense, there's not much he can't do. That's what makes him so special. And it wasn't God-given with just being the best athlete out there. He's not. Since he came into the league, I don't know if he's ever played a game where he was the best athlete on the court. Whether it was guys on his roster or on the other roster, I don't know if that's ever been the case for Kawhi. But his drive and will and ability to improve his game and refine his game and his touch and his skill set and his bag, that's insane. So as he ages at 33, loses some athleticism because of age and the injuries, well, he still jumps off his left leg anyways. It's his right leg that's giving him problems. And he's never relied on elite athleticism in the first place. So his game, if his knee would, respond well to playing, could age very well when he's available. His three-point shooting has only gotten better. He had one season in San Antonio where I think he finished top 3 in MVP voting in 2016, where he shot, 44% from three. But he was taking less. He took 4 games, not nothing. But you look at the three-point numbers, the three-point shooting percentage, since he became a Clipper, 38% from three, 40% from three, 41.6% from three, 41.7% from three. This season, 50% on 10 shots. But he has had some insane stretches the last 2 years where offensively it is definitive that that's the best version of Kawhi Leonard. Defensively, I still feel like it's all there when he needs it. He just doesn't do it consistently for long stretches where he is defending the best player like he used to in younger days with San Antonio, where he's more of a role player, a very good one. But yeah, it's not 40 minutes or 35 minutes of elite defense, but you want him on the other team's best player at the end of games, I think still, even with Chris Dunn or DJ, in those late game timeout situations like last year we saw against Steph or Jamal Murray. He had some big defensive moments, or the block that he had on SGA in that big victory last year, I think in December against the Thunder. Like, you still want him. I think I'm hoping that version of Kawhi that we got last season is still intact. It just needs to be slowly rolled out, and we'll get there as he feels better and trusts his body, has confidence in his knee. So the news and the reason we came on was because the announcement that tomorrow's game at Intuit Dome is postponed. Clippers and Charlotte Hornets will be rescheduled. Clippers will play at home against Miami on Monday. We'll have a show for you tomorrow. We're 7 days a week here. Appreciate you guys. You want to see the cutest cat? The shadow all curled up. All right. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I'm Adam Osland. You've been listening to Clippers Talk. Be safe.